as they face the student protest.
Karinda Jagmohan, I'm going to ask you to pause there for a moment as we introduce into the conversation the Minister of Higher Education, Blade Nzimande. Minister, a very good morning to you, and thanks indeed for giving us the time to discuss these issues. There is an ongoing situation right now as we speak, Minister, at the Mangosuthu University of Technology. Students there complaining about what they say is historic debt that has not been sorted out, but also the issue of financial exclusion. Talk to us about that particular situation, Minister, before we get deeper into other details.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I really do appreciate this because I have been feeling that perhaps Newzroom has not been giving me an opportunity to just explain properly on what is going on. I think that whilst I may not be able to deal with the details of each institution, which I may not have with me, I think that I must just deal with the issue of the principle. If you allow me very briefly.
Yes.
I must just explain government funding policy, government student funding policy, because I think that in the midst of protests and high emotions, things get fudged or they get deliberately distorted. Government policy is, we will support poor and working class students in higher education to acquire at least the first undergraduate qualification. And what is the criteria for that? Criteria is that all students who come from families who earn not more than 350,000 rands per annum will be supported through the NFSF bursary scheme. Now, insofar as that is concerned, Goli, the government has met its deal. Now, that gets lost in the process. In other words, we will be funding all those students who qualify and who have been accepted into a university or a college who come from this. There is no government policy which says free higher education for all. I want to make that clear because sometimes, even in the media, you don't question people when they actually call for that and say, what exactly are you talking about? We can't be funding the children of Blade Nzimande as a minister, or of Blade Nzimande as a highly paid engineer. There is no free higher education for all. It's free higher education for the children of the working class and the poor as defined by government. Oli, I also need to say this, that government policy has always been oriented towards the poor, whether it's on social grants, child grant, whether it's on supporting the indigent who are unable to pay for water or electricity, whether in basic education there are no fee schools that are in poor areas. So that is consistent with government policy. But government is not unaware that there are students who fall outside. Their families are earning more than 350,000 but are not wealthy enough to be able to afford education.
So, Minister,
we have then said, let me just finish this point quickly,
all right,
that we want as government to look into how can those students be assisted. Possibly it will be a loan, possibly it will be a mix of a loan and a bursary. That is one thing that we are now looking into. But the deal with NSFAS students is done. No NSFAS student is required to pay registration fee. No NSFAS students will be excluded because of financial consideration if he or she meets the academic criteria.
So then, Minister, the situation we're seeing unfolding outside Mangosuthu University right now, and if we go back to last month, what we saw at Rhodes University, how should the country see this? What do you make of these protests? Are the students who are raising these issues of financial exclusion, are they being dishonest?
No, they are not being dishonest at all. That's not what I've said. All what I was saying, Oli, was to clarify government policy. And that in terms of government policy, we've met our deal. students have a right to protest and to point out at this matter. That is why, as government, we have said, we are then exploring. Cabinet has asked me to say by June, come with a proposal on how we deal with the students who do not qualify in terms of government policy. But in doing that, Oli, we must be absolutely clear that as a government, we are saying, let that be explored. And it's unlikely to be coming out of government coffers, because government coffers can't afford beyond what is in its policy. We will have to find a system. There are many suggestions on the table, an affordable loan scheme, and a whole range of other things. By the way, there are also exceptions even with those families, that if you have got more than 2 kids at a university and you are earning more than 350,000 but less than 600,000, we will support you as NSFAS. Also, students with disability, the criteria is they should come for families who are even earning up to 600,000 rands per annum. There are even exceptions that we are making there. But we are not saying that the students are wrong, to protest, but what should be clear in public is that there is no free higher education for all, Poli. That is my angst with the media, because you are not actually clarifying that. I'm not meaning Polimgan, but I'm just meaning that is not being clarified. Then we get crucified as government as if we are doing nothing. Children of the poor and the working class, they have free higher education as I'm speaking to you right now. Now, there may be instances, let me concede, where there are problems in the administration of NSFAS. I don't know what the situation is at Mangosuthu. Now that the situation has been drawn to my attention, I'm going to be asking the department. There's someone sitting right in front of me to find out. Ishmael is here supervising me. And they're going to find out what's happening at Mangosuthu. There are issues of inefficiencies that are unacceptable, sometimes from the side of universities. And there are also sometimes challenges and inefficiencies on the side of NSFAS. That we must deal with.
I think
without any fail. But what also I want to do, Koli, let me just also tell you, I have now also taken a decision that I want to introduce an ombud system for the university system. Because as a department, we can't have the capacity of dealing with, say, 20,000 students who are being victims of inefficiencies in administration. We need an ombud with legal powers and legal teeth to be able to force institutions to be able to do what they are actually supposed to do. I'm not denying that there may be those kinds of problems. But insofar as government policy, it's clear. Insofar as what we want to do about what we call the missing middle, I've also explained that to you. Because Cabinet has asked me and said, let's look comprehensively at the issue of student funding, including the issue of student debt, by the way, which if you have a chance, we can also talk about it.
Yeah, we are going to have a chance around that, Minister, but you've just brought into the conversation a completely new concept, or perhaps policy direction, an ombud system. What exactly is going to be the role of this ombud system? Just explain it to us. Are you communicating this for the first time, by the way?
Possibly I am saying it publicly for the first time. You are right. We've been discussing those since last year inside the department. The reason why maybe I haven't said it is because we are still working at this. I intend to amend the Higher Education Act as one method to establish the office of the ombuds. The ombuds will be a person who would be like the public protector in a way of the higher education system, such that if you have a complaint, you have a person that you can actually go to if you feel that a particular institution is not treating you well. Or if you feel that us as a government department, we are not treating you well, we will also be subjected to that. Then the ombuds can actually be able to say, what is the problem? Give me an answer by this time. What are you doing about this? And so on. Because we want then a system and capacity. We want to have capacity because as a department, we can't act as an ombuds because sometimes we ourselves may be on the wrong, but we are also structured in such a way that we must deliver what we are supposed to deliver, not to deal with the volumes of complaints that are sometimes there at the beginning of each year.
Yeah.
So that is what I want to do. And the details of that, of course, as we develop that, we'll be able to engage with you as the media. Anytime, I'm more than happy to be asked if you feel like, Nzimande, come, let's explain to us where you are. But that is the concept that we have in mind.
All right, Minister. You spoke about the inefficiencies in the NSFAS system. The HEHA Commission, if you recall, they recommended that this system be completely scrapped and replaced with a new financial model, something that they called an income contingent loan. This would be sourced via the commercial banks as we know them. Why has government not followed this recommendation, given that you are saying that there are inefficiencies in the NSFAS?
Well, let me also be fair, by the way, to NSFAS. I think on the whole, NSFAS has done very well, given the challenges that we are actually facing and the scale. I don't want to say, that NSFAS is useless, is totally inefficient. It's not true. Even the administrator who left, one of the things, Claudia, I must say very quickly that he did was that now a student is able to apply straight to NSFAS and be told whether you qualify or not, even before you go and register. Because before, the problem was that you get accepted at a university or a college, but you don't know whether you qualify for NSFAS. Now, that has relieved us a lot in terms of some of the problems that we used to have. NSFAS itself does know that there are shortcomings. For instance, the information and technology system of NSFAS are backward. That is what I've said they must prioritize. And sometimes the problem is there isn't enough coordination between institutions and NSFAS. Sometimes institutions do not give information on time to say, we have accepted this student so that NSFAS can pay. We are looking into all those things. So I don't want to be unfair on NSFAS. But to come back to the issue of the HEHA Commission. Look, Oli, it was unfortunate that government did not fully process the recommendations of the HEHA Commission before introducing the new bursary scheme, which was introduced in 2018. Because there is lots of information. Ourselves, myself as minister at that time of higher education and training, I appeared twice before the HEHA Commission and gave lots of information about what the situation is and what I think needs to be done. That information is still there. Now, to cut to the chase, Cabinet has said to me, and we have agreed with Treasury, in actually coming up with a proposal of reviewing student funding comprehensively, we have also to look into the HEHA Commission. In other words, we are going to correct that. We are going to go back and look at the findings and the recommendations of the HEHA Commission. Of course, it does not necessarily mean, Cody, that every recommendation made by HEHA would be acceptable to the government, But we have to look at all those recommendations that they've actually made. And I'm sure that Cabinet, in its wisdom, will decide, we accept this, we actually do not accept this. The problem before is that those recommendations never went before Cabinet.
All right.
So that they could be properly processed.
Sure. That's quite astounding, and it's quite an admission that these recommendations were never dealt with by Cabinet. Instead, a new funding model or a funding system was announced. Minister, we're going to take a short break. Let's take a short break. When we return, I just want to forewarn you that our colleague at the Mangosuthu University of Technology is going to have a leader of the SRC there. They just have one question that they would like to put to you, so please bear with us. So we are in conversation with the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Blade Nzimande. We'll continue the conversation in just a moment.
The shutdown must be called off as soon as is possible.
They fed us, Nzimande fed us. Why? For what good reason? We don't have any guns and enough. We want free education.
every beginning of the year there is instability. It's like a Sophie now, the bold and the beautiful.
Very good morning to you once again if you're just joining us. Well, students are protesting outside the Mangosuthu University of Technology. That's in Durban. The key demand, scrapping historical debt and financial exclusion is what they are complaining about. Our colleague Karinda Jagmohan is out there. Karinda, a very good morning to you. I understand you have with you Mthokozisi Gumede. He is the MUT SRC president. Very quickly, what is the one question that Mthokozisi has for the Minister of Higher Education? He is here with us.
Good morning to you. Well, yes, the SRC president for MUT joins me now. Mr. Gumede, you're speaking directly to the Minister of Higher Education, Minister Blade Nzimande. What do you have to say to him? What's your one question to him?
All right. No, thank you very much. Firstly, to the Minister of Higher Education, firstly, I want to applaud you guys for giving us this opportunity to talk directly to him, because I think the only person who can move us or assist us at this point of time, it's only him. First and foremost, I want to tell him that at this point of time, the institution is saying it's business as usual, while we've got 2,000 only students that are registered. At this institution, we only intake 13 plus students. Now, they are saying on Monday, classes are commencing. My question, or the SRC's question is, who is going to attend those classes while 9,000 plus students are not registered at this point of time? 9,000 plus students are not accommodated at this point of time. Advanced diploma students are registered, are not accommodated at this point of time. Further to that, I want to ask the Minister of Higher Education, what is he saying about the resolution that was taken by the Portfolio Committee? Because our issues have been raised for quite some time now, but there is nothing that has been done about that. Moreover to that, the staff is on protest. There's nothing that is being said about that. Now the question is, who is going to register these students when staff members are on leaves, when staff members are on protest? Who is going to give students this accommodation that they need before classes commences? If they are saying on Monday we are going to classes, how does a student go to a class without their allowances? Who is going? Why do we expect students to go to classes with hungry stomachs? Lastly, I want to ask the Minister of Higher Education, why does it have to always to be the case that a student must get shot first, a student must be murdered first, a student must be violated first before student issues are attended?
Thank you very much, Mr. Gumede. The SRC president, Oli, Minister Nzimande, back to you.
Thank you very much, Karinda Jagmohan. Minister, I'm hoping you were able to hear some of what Mthokozisi Gumede had to ask of you, or would you like me to repeat?
No, I heard. It was very clear, Paul. Thank you very much. Look, let me just say this, that I am very concerned about, as I have said before, protests and disturbances that take place at the beginning of each year. That's why we are doing our best as the department in terms of some of the things I've outlined, in terms of commitment to support NSFAS students, and also what happens and what we do so that we do not have these problems. I'm saddened by what I'm hearing, seeing at Mangosuthu University of Technology. As I have said, Poli, unfortunately, I don't have the details as I'm sitting right now with you. I have asked my department. They are collecting information, including also talking to management, because also we would like to hear from management whether is it true that only 2,000 of about 13,000 students have actually registered, And if that is so, what would be the reason for that? But also, Tony, as I say, I don't know what the background is, but also the fact of the matter is that Mangosuthu University is amongst the last of the universities to start the academic year. It could be, I'm not sure, I've got to get a report, it could be that the process is far from complete of registration. But I will have to get details about that so that we see how we can assist the institution to be able to deal with the situation that it may actually be faced with at this point in time. But on our side as government, we are very committed to work with everyone. That is why I had an agreement with the South African Union of Students, for instance. We are meeting again tomorrow to actually look into some of these outstanding issues. Now, we want every institution to be functioning fully. Much as, of course, right now, 24 of the universities are working, are functional, you know. Now, it does not mean, of course, because we say 24 out of the 26 are functional, we do not care about those that are not starting okay. As I'm actually saying, we will do all we can to actually find out what is going on in Mangosuthu. Where we can be able to assist, we'll be able to assist. NSFAS is also on hand to be able, because I guess overwhelmingly, by the way, not that I guess, overwhelmingly, possibly way more than 80% of the Mangosuthu University of Technology students are NSFAS students.
Yeah. Minister, yes. I have quite a bit of responses, or should I say questions that have come through, because we have been encouraging students to, in particular, put questions directly to you. And I know that the team is going to assist me with this. There is a question that has come from Rhodes University, from the SRC president there, Lebohang Ngambule. I wonder if the team has that particular soundbite ready. All right, it looks like we have it ready. Let's just go through a whole list of them, Minister, so that we can respond comprehensively. So let's start with Lebohang Ngambule. Let's hear what she has to say.
To those postgraduate students that have been defunded. Secondly, we have reached the second month of the academic program, and it is continuing like business as usual, whereas we are having a number of students being left behind. What are the contingency plans that are going to come from the head and NSFAS, having to take into account that the issues that we are currently facing are at their helm?
In the time he has spent, has he not stumbled into a free education model? Right, and if he has, why has that free education model not been tabled as a bill before Parliament for discussion and for implementation sooner rather than later? And in the event that he hasn't, does he serve any good in the department? Right, what good does he bring to the department? Because for a long time now, I don't know, for as long as democracy starts or even beyond that, we've been having this conversation. So is he serving any good if he can't find permanent solutions to the problems that the department faces?
Mr. Blade, is the N+1 rule still apply also for this year? Are we going to be funded, and are we going to get our allowances?
Minister, I wonder if you were able to hear at least some of what was said in those short questions to you.
No, I heard very well, Coach. Let me also, Coach, say this, that I think much as I'm willing to engage, but we must always distinguish between systemic problems and institutional problems. One of the agreements we made with SAUS is that institutional problems must be dealt with individual SRCs as individual institutions. As minister, I can't be dealing with institutional problems. Who is passing, who is failing, what's the snag in a particular financial aid office in a particular university or college. So I want to make that clear up front, that I can't sit here and say, what's the problem at Rhodes? What's the problem at UCT? What's the problem at Zululand? Because I can't be dealing with institution-specific problems. We've reached that understanding. That's why we have SRCs. That's why we've got management. What I can deal with are systemic issues, that's what I'm going to pick up from these two comments that were made. The first systemic issue is, when are we going to solve these problems? But I've outlined that already, Paul. That insofar as NSFAS students are concerned, those ones are dealt with. If there are problems, there could just be problems of efficiency of administration, which also we are saying to SRCs and management, sit down and solve those problems. But the system is there, it is in place, and the policies of government are there, they are in place. I've also spoken about this thing of Cabinet asking me to do a comprehensive review of student funding. By the way, Xoli, it's not for the first time that I do this. In my earlier stint as Minister of Higher Education and Training, I had even come up with a system to assist your missing middle students. It's not that I'm dealing with these things for the first time. But now the difference is that Cabinet now has asked me to say, bring those for the discussions on the table.
But Minister, can I just come in there quickly, Minister?
Yes, Paul.
With this new approach, where Cabinet has asked you to conduct this comprehensive review of student funding, are we not going back? Because there was a ministerial committee, and I think there was a presidential review element as well. And then, to top it off, you then had the HEHA Commission that looked into everything. Are you not taking us backwards again? Because the recommendations are there. It's not the fault of students that Cabinet did not get a chance to apply its mind to what HEHA recommended, the judge. Surely that's not going to be the fault of the students. Who must take responsibility for you not discussing the HEHA Commission recommendations?
No, Oli, I think that let's not mix the two things. The issue of debt, for instance, and all these issues that are being raised by students, it's not that they are not being dealt with. I met with the vice chancellors a few weeks ago, and we agreed, and they've done that in each university is going to look at the issue of students who owe in the 26 universities. And given the capacity they have, they don't have the same capacity. University of Limpopo and UCT do not have the same capacity. They have, many of these universities, allowed students, if they acknowledge debt, to actually register, including your missing middle students. So it mustn't be because HEHA had not been discussed by Cabinet, therefore nothing is happening. A lot is happening. The vice chancellors have agreed, and indeed that is why some of these issues have been sorted out in most universities, because they have come up with some form of assistance. In some instances, even provincial governments have come up to say, like in the Eastern Cape, like the Premier of Gauteng was saying, we have got extra bursaries to assist missing middle students. Ourselves as the department, by the way, we have got a dedicated special bursary, for students who qualify but who are in the missing middle, but who are in scarce skills areas, in areas that we are sort of as a country. We do have that, by the way. So there is a lot that is being done, even outside of dealing with the HEHA Commission. So I don't want us to be left with the impression that therefore nothing was actually being done. But let me come back to your issue. Precisely because a lot of work has been done, my approach now is to set up a quick task team that's not going to reinvent the wheel. It's going to go and look into the HEHA Commission and look into the ministerial task team recommendations from the ministerial task teams that I had initially appointed, some of them in my earlier stint, to say what were the recommendations, so that then we don't reinvent the wheel. We hope that it will make it quicker, such that we are able to come up with a set of recommendations that Cabinet will in one way or the other be able to make a decision.
Yeah, all right.
Now, let me come to this other question then, that the last student raised about the N+1 rule.
Yes.
I think this is important, Cody, that I explain this, because sometimes this issue gets thrown into the public and we do not understand. What is the N+1 rule?
Right.
The N+1 rule is simply this, that if you are funded by NSFAS, we will allow you to fail once. because we are taking into account that most of the students that we are supporting come from poor families. They may even be coming from schools that had not really fully prepared them, even though they've done well, to be able to be admitted at a college or a university. Because of our conditions in South Africa. That's the generosity of government understanding our condition. We'll allow you to do a 3-year degree in 4 years. If it's a 4-year degree, we'll allow you to complete it in 5 years, in case you fail. But you can only fail once, Toli. That's what N+1 means. N stands for the number of years of that degree or diploma, 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, plus 1 says we're giving you an extra year because we understand the conditions. But if you fail further than that, well, then you must get out of the system, unfortunately, because there are other students who also want that same kind of assistance. So that rule is going to continue. In fact, I think we are possibly the only country that I know of that does this. Most countries that give bursaries, you fail once, you're out. But we've actually allowed this. In the past, we used to allow, by the way, before 2018, N+2 Toli, would allow people to fail twice. And we've said now we have a bursary which pays for everything, by the way. Our NSFAS bursary pays for tuition, pays for accommodation, pays for food, in some instances even pays for transport, and pays for learning materials. So it's a complete support for poor and working class students to actually be able to pass. And again, I don't want to be seen as if I'm boasting, but I give you your research, ask your research team, Toli, other than Cuba, to tell me which other country does what South Africa is doing, even for a certain category of students. You will find none.
All right, Minister, let's take another short breather. When we return, I'm going to ask you about the colleges. These are vocational institutions because they also seemed to get quite a lot of attention from the HEHA Commission and are in desperate need of support. Very good morning to you. If you're just joining us, we are in conversation with the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Blade Nzimande. Minister, let's come back to you quickly. There are two issues I want to explore with you very, very briefly. The one has to do with Tibet colleges. They seemed to get quite a bit of attention from the HEHA Commission, and the suggestion was that they are severely underfunded, and that actually if we are going to scrap, or if NSFAS was going to be scrapped, the only reason it would be allowed to sort of breathe or allowed to exist still would specifically be for the funding of Tibet college students. Talk to us about that briefly before I bring in the next element, which also came out very strongly. Tibet colleges. How is the funding system managed there?
Oli, firstly, most of our Tibet colleges at the moment are continuing. Where there have been problems, they are actually being attended to by our principals and our councils, as we have said. But most of that system is stable at the moment. The Tibet colleges actually is our future. At the moment, Tony, South Africa, we've got just about over 700,000 students at Tibet colleges and just over 1.1 million at university. Ideally, we should be having 2 or 3 times more students at Tibet colleges than at universities. That's what the rest of the world looks like, Our system is unaffordable, and it's not ideal that everyone must take the academic route and go to university. We have paid a lot of attention to Tibet colleges. 2009, when they were transferred to my department, we doubled the intake by 2013. In 3-4 years, we doubled the intake. We also introduced NSFAS for the first time in the Tibet college system. But the problem, there is not enough colleges and there is not enough capacity. Unfortunately, government budget is not allowing us to expand. If we are to really, because the reason, part of the reason why there is so much pressure at our universities is because we do not have an option of Tibet colleges. Take Germany, which is the most advanced economy in Europe. Only 30% of their students go to university when they finish school. 70% become apprenticed. That is why one of the things I'm doing now, which I hope at some stage you will give me time just to devote attention to it, is that we want to do a sea change with Tibet colleges, to have an apprenticeship-based Tibet college system where a student does not go to college first to be admitted, but gets taken in a workplace and be an apprentice, and then once or twice a week then attend college for theory. And then otherwise the student is paid a stipend, is at the workplace. That's the system I would like to see happening in South Africa. The German government, fortunately, there is an agreement between our president and Chancellor Merkel that we are just about to start to push for that. So, but also it will require that government then will have to make a decision to release more money to actually expand rapidly the Tibet college sector. That's our future. You know, Oli, just to give you an idea very quickly, out of 100 pupils who start grade 1, you know how many of those actually enter university? It's 10.
Sure.
It's 10.
Minister, if Tibet colleges... Minister, let me interrupt you for a sec. Minister. If Tibet colleges are the future, these are your words. Tibet colleges are the future. Yes, universities exist, but the vocational training institutions, which is what Tibet colleges are, they are the future. Listen to this tweet from someone who goes with the handle Bapela Pabalo. He says, and this is someone who goes to a Tibet college, we pay tuition fees and travel to school, but we don't have lecturers to teach us. How do you expect us to write exams about something you don't even understand? He is from the Tshwane South College in Pretoria West, to be exact. That's his tweet. How do you respond to that, Minister?
I agree with that story. I'm going to admit, as I have said, we don't have enough resources now to address all those things. We are addressing them, not at the speed which we must. We have, for instance, now, to address the issue of qualified lecturers, few of our universities, about 4 if I'm not mistaken already, have introduced for the first time a dedicated lecturer qualification specifically for Tibet colleges, because it's a problem that we have already identified and we are already doing something about that. We may not be able to do that with all the colleges at the same time, but we are already on course to address that. We are acutely aware of that. That is part of the problem that I'm saying, that more resources actually we need to put into Tibet colleges as we build capacity, so that we don't have, there are colleges where students are teaching other students, students who have just recently qualified. We are aware of all that. That's why what we've done now for the first time, because a lot of lecturers in Tibet colleges, some of them were school teachers who simply got a job in a Tibet college, but they don't have the qualification. But we are addressing that. That is why we have even said we do need to support students, strong student representation, lecturer organization in our Tibet colleges, so that we have partners that we can work together with in order to turn around our Tibet college system.
All right. Minister, time is against us. Very quickly, before I take the last break, the issue of online and blended learning. That is something that the HEHA Commission also came up and said, actually, we need to investigate the viability of this. And lo and behold, COVID-19 hit us. The globe has practically moved to the online space. And here's a fundamental issue, Minister. The HEHA Commission said this would actually be an added advantage in order to deal or address the capacity issues that we have been talking about since we started this conversation. Where are you in terms of this online and blended learning? Because this could be the major reason that could turn things around for you.
Yes, that's another future, Tony. We agree with you. Already, by the way, a lot of our universities in particular are already following that route. And also, by the way, more than 60% of our university students now have access to tablets, whether or a gadget like a laptop, because we know that that is actually the future. You are right. COVID-19 has given us a wake-up call. That is why part of the budget now that we are trying to protect for our universities is to build that capacity for online learning. Blended learning is the future, which is a mix of online and a mix of contact. Of course, some courses will always require contact, like those that require practicals in vocational colleges, health professions, for instance, doctors, nurses, they require practical and contact. But online learning is indeed the future. What also I'm going to be doing, I'm also going to be appointing an expert team to advise me on what is it that we need as a country if we are to go online. Right. But we've already started also as well, because I've asked the CSIR, our Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, to say where is connectivity in the country, because that's another issue, Tony, which is not just a Department of Education issue narrowly, is a country issue generally. Where do we have connectivity? We have an idea now, that is the work that we've done, that in fact more than 90% of the country at least has got 3G connectivity. But in these days of 5G, it means we need to do a lot more to invest now in infrastructure so that we are able to have effective digital support. And we are working with the Minister of Communications, fortunately, together, not only just to look at where is connectivity, but also to provide training for people who can be able to support a swift move towards digital capacity for the country.
All right, Minister Nzimande, let's hold it there one more time before we wrap up our conversation. We'll take a short breather. When we return, we're going to discuss one last issue with the Minister. You don't want to miss this one. Good morning to you once again. If you're just joining us, you catch us at the tail end of the conversation we are having with the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Dr. Blade Nzimande. Minister, thanks indeed for staying with us. The last point I want to explore with you, Minister, is around this issue of free education. 3 ANC conferences have reiterated support for access to, and I'm going to quote now, to fully subsidized free higher education and training. I close quote there. And the justification, or what we have been told over the years, is that this is in order to achieve not only transformation in the country, but to create what you as politicians have called the skills revolution. So before you answer to what I'm going to ask you next, I just want you to have a listen to this for a moment, Minister.
Ngicela ke ngitshenele insizwa kaNzimande comrade ukuthi akangakwenzi lokho akwenzayo ngoba ufana nokuthi uqhubela ukuthi silo siqhuluzana sithukana ngaphansi nangale. Ngangithi mina uyilungu ka-ANC, ipolicy ka-ANC Freedom Charter ithi kuyofuneka ukuthi kube khona free education la. Usithathaphi isibindi sokuphikisana ne-policy ye-ANC?
All right. Minister, I don't think I need to ask you the question, because that question has already been put to you by the former president, who's very clear that free education is what the ANC policy says. So, how dare you question ANC policy?
Tony, I don't want to be debating with former President Zuma. I honestly, I respect him as an elder. I don't want to. I've already answered the very question that he is raising. There is no policy of the ANC for free higher education for all. even if when you go to the Freedom Charter talks about free and compulsory schooling, and then it says higher education students will be assisted with scholarships and allowances based on merit. Go and read that clause. So there is no clause. The current policy of the ANC and the Constitution, Section 29, says progressive introduction of free higher education. And government policy as of now, it says free higher education for the working class and the poor. That is what it says. Go and look at that, Cody. I don't want to be, I'm not debating former President Zuma. I'm merely just telling you a fact. And insofar as that is concerned, that is what we are implementing.
So Minister, when you said,
yes,
when you said that the HEHA recommendations were not discussed in cabinet, instead, what we saw was an announcement by the former president around the issue of higher education.
Yes.
In essence, were you telling the nation that the former president plunged the country into a crisis on this matter by making those announcements without discussing?
Yes. I would have said that even if it was President Mandela, I would have done that. I would have said that. Even if it was President Mbeki. Were President Ramaphosa now to do the same, I would say so.
Say what exactly, Minister? Because I want it in your words.
Pardon?
I want you to say it in your words. I don't want you to say, I've put words into your mouth. Did former President Zuma plunge the country into a crisis by announcing free higher education?
No, he did not plunge the country into a crisis. I never said that.
Okay.
I welcome free higher education for the working class and the poor and the announcements that he made. The issue I was raising, which, by the way, I was at Scopa, they were asking me what are some of the challenges of NSFAS, is that there was not enough time to properly plan for that. There was also not time to look at the recommendations of the HEHA Commission, which are very important when you make such change in policy, welcome as it is. For instance, the announcement was made on the 16th of December 2017, and when institutions were going to be starting on the 2nd of January. In other words, government gave itself, or was given, 2 weeks to make a huge shift. The shift was welcome. It was an important announcement, but you need to plan in order to do things. It's not a personalized attack on anyone. If it was President Mandela who would have actually expected such a sea change to be implemented in 2 weeks, I would have said so to him, or in relation to President Mbeki, even President Ramaphosa.
All right.
I think this thing is a diversion.
All right.
What
Minister?
we should be focusing on is what we are doing now. By the way, the last thing I must also say, the students which they are raising, we are not in support of students being shot at by the police. The Minister of Police himself has said it. But also, at the same time, we want to urge students not to destroy property, not to be involved in intimidation and any other form of violence.
Right.
There must be peace on all sides and protect the right to protest and focus on what we want to do, which is actually making sure that our young people do access higher education.
Minister, I've got to thank you very much for your time, and I'm going to be shouted at for this one, but there's been so many tweets that have said, you've admitted to all these shortcomings. When are you going to tender your resignation? Do you intend doing that?
We've done.
Sorry, Minister, you've muted yourself. You've muted yourself.
Yeah, sorry. No, not at all. 2014, government spent 5.9 billion on NSFAS. 2021, we are likely to be spending about 43 billion. If you actually look at this, it's more than 500% increase in less than 10 years. And I am very proud that I've been part of that, and I continue to be committed that young people, especially from the working class and the poor, are able to actually access. This is a huge achievement by government. Many of those youngsters would not have seen the door of a university or college. Many of them are the first time that they actually have a college diploma or a university diploma and certificate. This government, we know there are still many challenges, but we have changed the lives of millions of our young people and our families through the support that we have given, and I've proudly been part of that. We're not perfect, but we have done exceptionally well in so many instances. Go out, Oli, I want to challenge 405, and found successful engineers, doctors, artisans today who were supported by NSFAS, who are out there working, looking after themselves and their families, and contributing to building the economy of this country.
Dr. Blade Nzimande, thank you very much for your time, Minister of Higher Education and Training. Well, we are at 11 o'clock, and yes, indeed, I did break the rules. It is a little after 11. We're going